Hi guys, this video is just to introduce you to QGIS. So the the main goal for today is for us to evaluate how urban infrastructure like parks, transit, and food access impacts the health of a specific group by identifying special gaps in St. Louis. So you're gonna use St. Louis as a case study, and you're gonna use QGIS software to try to understand these special inequities and inequalities inside St. Louis. So we have some good examples here of maps that we can use as an example before we create our own indicator. So we have this map, which is really interesting. They used in St. Louis land use strategic plan. So we have these specific areas with grocery stores, restaurants, and cafes. And we have three buffers. So we have three distances. So we're going to work with QGIS today. So first, let's have a quick intro to the interface of the software. So if you're not seeing that when you open QGIS, please click on New Project or go to Project and click New so that you can see that. So the main parts of the interface, first, the browser panel, where you can search for all your documents and shapefiles. Here you have the layers panel, where you have all the layers you're working with. So we usually call them shapefiles, but we have other formats of files, but we're going to work with shapefiles. So you're going to have all your shapefiles inside this panel. And here you'll have your map. And if you're not seeing the toolbox here, you're going to go to processing and go to toolbox so that you can search for everything you're going to work with, for example, buffers. Okay. Okay, let's start working with the shapefiles. So you can either browse for your folder in your file here, but you can also look inside of your folder and just drag it to the project. Okay. Here you can see that when I dragged these neighborhoods inside the software, we already have a number here. This is the current coordinate of the map. So when we were working with maps, we have the coordinates. So it all depends of the location to set the coordinate reference system. You can look more on it on internet, but I highly recommend searching for the main coordinate for your project. So here we're going to work with St. Louis, Missouri. So you're going to pick this coordinate system. And if you have different shapefiles with different coordinate systems, you might have problems doing some analysis inside the software. So make sure you have all of your shapefiles with the same coordinate system here. Okay. Another thing that you can check is the coordinate system of each shapefile. So here we go to information, and you're going to check if it is the same coordinate reference system here. If you want to change, you go to source, and you can change, for example, for the project CRS, okay? And you're going to click apply. If you still have problems working with some analysis inside the software, you always have the option to export and create a new file with the right coordinate system. So you can click export, and you're going to pick shapefile, and you're going to define the right CRS for you and the location of the file and the name of the file, and you're going to save a new layer. If you still have problems, create a new project, and the first shapefile that you want to have inside your project is the one that you have the right CRS. So start with that one, and then the software will understand that you want to keep that coordinate system inside the project. So I think that's a great information for you to start and to avoid having issues and troubles when you work with buffers, for example. So, okay. We have data from St. Louis. We're going to start working with the city boundary and city neighborhoods. So you can see that I just dragged that inside the software, and we are not seeing neighborhoods anymore. It's because the boundary is on the top of it, so you need to drag it down so that you can see the neighborhoods. You can double click the layer, and you're going to go to symbology, and you can look for options and symbols, and you can click apply. You can work with the opacity of that. You can change the colors. You have a bunch of options for that. I'm going to change the boundary color also to another one, maybe a gray one, darker gray. Okay. You have all of these files available for you to download. So we have transit information, we have food access information, parks, and streets. Let's pick the streets first. So important thing is when you work with shapefiles, you need to make sure that you understand that it has a family of files. So the shapefile needs to have all of these other files with the same name that works together. So inside the software, we only use the shapefile, but when you are sharing that file with somebody, you need to make sure that you're going to share all of the family together. So it works normally with 5 or 6 other files. So we're going to pick the shapefile format. You're going to drag it to your map. So you're not seeing that because neighborhoods are on top of that. So we're going to drag it to the top. So you already can see the streets inside the city. Another thing that I really like to work with is satellite images. So you can go to plugins and you can install some plugins that are interesting for you. So one of them is QuickMapServices. So you go here on all and you type QuickMapServices and you're going to install the plugin. Another one that I really like to work with is the Quick OpenStreetMap. Okay, so let's downgrade the plugin because I'm seeing that this plugin is now it was reinstalled. Okay, so these two plugins, they are really helpful for us. So I really like to work with them. Let me see. Let me just check if this is working. Yeah. So now I can see that. Can you see here in the top? Okay. So first, the Google satellite. So you can click here and you can click Google satellite. And now you have, for example, the satellite on the back of your map, which is really helpful to understand what you're seeing and the infrastructure inside some parks, for example. What else? The OpenStreetMaps is a really nice plugin because you can search for a lot of attributes inside a city. So, for example, if you're working with healthy foods access, you can search for supermarkets. And here you can put St. Louis or the town that you're working with, but I think I would prefer to put the St. Louis boundary so that you make sure that it's only gonna search for the things inside the city you are working with. So you're gonna click run. Mm, let's search for food, fast food. Let's try a different way. Yeah, got it. So sometimes you have some issues because it's an open source software and open source plugin. So they are also working on some troubleshooting. So you can have those issues. You can always look inside the OpenStreetMap forum or GIS forum to understand the issues that you have and get some troubleshooting. So here you can see that we have fast foods downloaded in dots, and we also have fast foods restaurants downloaded in polygons. The problem is they have different formats, and ideally we would like to have the same format of shapefile to work with. So what I would suggest is to create a centroid inside the polygon and then merge both layers to have only one layer with fast foods. So what you can do is go here on the toolbox and search for centroids. And here you have some information about the tool and how this works. And you need to make sure that you're picking the polygon one, not the dots one, because you need to create centroids inside the polygon. And you click run. So if you drag this up to the top of that, you can see that it created a centroid inside the fast food. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete that. So just remove the layer. And then I need to merge both of them to create only one layer with information about fast food. So I'm going to look for merge vector layers, and I'm going to put these two input layers. Okay. And you can also put the CRS that you are working with, and you click run. So you're going to see that you have one layer that merges the other ones together. So one thing that is important is when you see that, you will see that this is a temporary scratch. So when you close your project, you're going to lose it. So you need to turn this as a temporary, not a temporary, but a permanent one. So you click here and you're going to save this scratch. So you choose shapefile and you're going to look for the right place inside your computer. So make sure that you're not typing space because you can have problems with that in the name of the file. So you're going to put OSM, community, fast food, St. Louis. You can also put the information about the coordinate system that you were working with to make sure that you're always working with the same one. So did you see I'm not typing space here. So it's the best thing to do to not have issues after with that. So click OK. And now you're going to see that this is not a temporary scratch anymore. I'm going to remove the other ones that I don't need anymore. And I'm going to rename that. So right click and rename. I'm going to put fast food. Okay. So let's work with other things now. If I want to understand the access to unhealthy food, you can create buffers around the fast food to understand how they are clustering inside the city. So you're gonna click buffer, you're gonna pick fast food, and you need to define the distance that you're working with. So I'm gonna choose meters. I think QGIS works better with meters, so I highly recommend working with meters. And I'm gonna pick very small distance, thinking about the different groups that can access that. Here, I put more segments just to have a better looking buffer, okay? And you click run. So let's just put the fast food on top. Oops. So now you can see how the fast foods are clustering inside the city. If you want to work with more buffers and bigger buffers, you can just create other ones, okay? If you want to see better what is happening above that, you can always change the opacity so that you can look better and search for the satellite image of this location. So if I put boundary, I can better understand how this is clustering inside the city. It's really important for you to understand that maybe the data is not updated, so you can have, you can have fast foods that doesn't exist anymore in your map. So this is a limitation when you're working with open data, but make sure if you're like writing a paper or work, make sure to write that limitation down to make sure that people understand that this might be an issue, okay? That's it. I think we can move on to a different exercise. So we can pick the shape files for parks. So let's grab the parks inside St. Louis. So I'm gonna put this here. I can create a folder. Look, I can create a group for fast food only. And I'm gonna put fast food and the buffer inside that, so I can just turn it off. I want the parks to be understandable, so I want them to be green. Let's see. This one. I'm gonna apply this one. Okay. So now when we talk about access to parks, we need to think about like an walkable distance. So you can also search for other evidences, like articles with the better measure to work with, but I really like to work with 500 meters. And I'm gonna pick more segments also to have a better looking buffer. So we are gonna create this destination proximity buffer. You're gonna have the indicator that shows you which parts of the city has this closer access to parks. Okay, so clusters with parks within 500 meters. So I'm gonna run that. And now you can see, let's put the parks on top of that. Let's change the color of the buffer. I'm gonna put the simple green and I want it to be transparent. Okay, so now you can check the areas of the city. Let's turn on the neighborhoods. So you can check the areas of the city that are clusters, have clusters of parks, and you can also check areas that you have inequities, you have lack of access to parks. So we have areas on north, you have areas on south. You can also consider the size of the park. So when we look at the size of the parks, you see that the bigger parks, like Forest Park, for example, they are located in the south part of the city. And when we look to the north part of the city, you see that you have smaller parks. It's important to make sure that it's not only park access that we need to consider, you need also to understand the infrastructure inside the park. But what is important to you to understand is also when we work with GIS, a pretty interesting thing is when you go here to attributes table and you click on that, you're going to see that we have a lot of information. So each feature inside the map has an information. So it's not only a draw, a polygon, you have information about what is it. So I think it's important to realize that this is only an option of indicator, the proximity indicator, but you can also have other indicators. For example, you can count how many fast foods you have inside the neighborhood. So you can always search for it and use other analysis, for example, count points inside the polygon. And here you have all the information about this tool. You can also look for other YouTube tutorials to learn more about it. I think QGIS is pretty intuitive. It's easy to use. and it's important to make sure that you understand what you're analyzing and what the results show about inequities or health outcomes. But I think it was the main goal for today's